All right, we can call to order the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee meeting for May 22nd, 2025. Corey, can we get a roll call?
Sure. Ken Wooster.
Here.
Joyce Gifford.
Present.
Tim Lanehart.
Present.
Tim West.
Here.
And Melissa Dioy.
Here.
Thank you. He's a staff member.
All right, next order of business is going to be public comments. We have one today coming in from Damon Mabey. The stage is yours, sir. Yes, I believe so.
Good evening, my name is Damon Mabey. I'm with the Oregon City Parks Foundation. I'm also a resident. I wanted to talk to you about the...
Damon, will you make sure that mic is on? Yeah.
Sorry.
Hold it down for a couple seconds.
Sounds like it's on.
Turn screen's off. Yep, okay, got a little light screen. Okay, we'll start all over again. Hi, Damon Mabey, Oregon City Parks Foundation. I'm here to talk about something near and dear to my heart, which is the Buena Vista Clubhouse. Two things. First, on June 7th, which is a Saturday from 9 to noon, we're doing a cleanup around there. We're going to get the pine needles off the roof, clean the gutters out, clean around the building, and do some light cleaning inside. So you're all invited, please. So that'll help get things going. The other thing is there is a Metro program called Nature in the Neighborhoods Citizens Choice Grants, which is now centered around Clackamas County, which is, in this case, it's Oregon City, Westland, Gladstone, Milwaukee, and the unincorporated kind of Oak Grove area. They've got $3 million that they want to give out without matching up to $250,000 per grant. So we have applied for the Buena Vista Clubhouse to get it up to ADA compliance and hopefully get it up and running again. The key to these grants are that they are community choice, which means they're up on the Metro website and people vote on them. They have to get enough votes to go through each round. So I'm encouraging people to go to the Metro website, Google Metro Grants, and then look for Nature in the Neighborhoods, and then look for Community Choice, and then at the top of that page is a View Projects. Of course, it's millions of dollars they're giving away, but they can't put a button on their front page. There's multiple projects already listed, about 40. Several of them are in Oregon City. So you can vote for all of them or any of them. Definitely choose the Buena Vista Clubhouse, but there are other park things in and around Oregon City. So I wanted to make people aware that it even existed. It's going to be like next summer before they start giving any money away, but it's going to go through these rounds of project development, voting, and all that before it goes to Metro. The other part of that, which is the other thing, is also on June 7th from 11 to 2 at the Oregon City Library. Metro is going to be presenting the projects that are currently in their list, and they'll be talking about the program. So I encourage people to attend that. I don't know if there's going to be like dot voting there or anything, or if it's just information, but it's a perfect thing to come over to our little thing, do a couple hours of work, and then we'll just all trot on over to the library and vote about how important it is to us, and all those other things. So anyway, I wanted to let you know that there's a couple $1 million of free money. I mean, it's our tax money, but
Grant money, right.
yeah, but it's grant money that doesn't require matching. So, and it's open to anybody, if your park needs, 10 park benches, put it down. And we'll just see if it gets the votes and moves on. So it's a great opportunity for Oregon City in general, and especially for parks when we're so hurt and it's budgets, you've all heard it. You know, any dollar we can get in is a dollar that's a benefit to the park. So that was it. Thanks.
Thank you, Damon.
Thank you, Dan.
I will mention that Tom just sent me a link to find some more information out about this, so I will forward that on to you guys as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Damon.
Thanks, Joy.
See you, Damon.
Excellent. We can move to general business. I do want to note for a moment, we do have a public visitor here viewing for his civics credit from West Lynn. So thank you for coming in today. And I'll go away from mentioning your name just for the public record of that. But we'll move to general business. And first thing we have is a new Parks and Rec director we can talk to. Scott, why don't you go ahead?
Thanks. Before we do that, I think we have some minutes to approve.
Approval of minutes. I got too
Do that
excited.
first, and then I'll.
Thank you. We do have approval of minutes. If someone has reviewed the last minutes back in March 27th, 2025, the floor is open for you.
I move that we approve the minutes from March 27th, 2025.
Joyce moves to approve that. Can I get a second?
I second.
Excellent. Corey, can we get a roll call for that?
Sure. Ken Wooster,
Yes.
Joyce Gifford,
Yes.
Tim Lanehart,
Yes.
Tim West,
Yes.
and Melissa Dio.
Yes.
Thank you guys so much.
All right, now we can get going. Scott, thank you. I was too excited to move on with the agenda. Please go ahead. Welcome in.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, it's great to be here. Hello again, and hello to those of you that I haven't worked with before. So yeah, Scott Archer, and I am the new Parks and Recreation Director, the new old Parks and Rec Director. Community Services Director was actually the title I was mostly working on previously. So as you probably know, I did serve previously with the city in this similar role from 2004 to 2016. I've been in the public service, local government business for over 30 years, mostly in this region, and, you know, again, 12 years in Oregon City specifically, and a little bit, you know, was in the southern part of Oregon for a few years, in Medford, and up in central Washington for a few years, but otherwise I've been primarily right here in the Clackamas County and kind of the northern Willamette Valley area. So, and most of that has been working in the Parks and Recreation part of this business. Oversaw some community services, you know, like library services and a few different things, but most of my work has been in Parks and Rec. When I left the city last time in 2016, I went to the North Clackamas Park and Rec District for about 5 years, and then I had an opportunity to try my hand at city management, which was always something I thought I might want to do. So I first went to the city of Canby for about 3 years and did that, and then had an opportunity to go to Salem, and I was a deputy city manager for community services there, which was Parks and Rec, libraries, senior services, and a few other things. But what I realized was those positions within kind of getting more into the city management role, as I was pulling further away from what really my passion was, why I got into this business of local government and public service was because of Parks and Recreation. I actually started as a recreation coordinator a very long time ago, and just kind of, you know, grew in the profession from there. So, and also, you know, for my wife and I, Oregon City really has been kind of the home base. We actually lived here for 20 years. We raised our kids. They're off doing great things now, and we did move out of the city, but we're not too far down the road. A few years ago when we downsized, but we still are very attached. My wife still teaches here in the school district, and so Oregon City has been kind of home. So the alignment of that part of our life and the professional side, it was like, you know, for however many years I have left to work in this business, I want to do the exact thing that drove me into the public service. And when this opportunity came up, I pursued it aggressively and was fortunate enough to get the opportunity. So I'm just really thankful to be here and looking forward to working with all of you and with the whole community. I know, you know, one of the things that excited me about the opportunity was looking at, you know, and we're going to talk about this in a little bit, the Parks and Rec Master Plan update, some of the big initiatives that we're looking at. You know, I feel like we're at this kind of pivotal point of, like, we've done some things in the past, and now we're ready to look at, what's in the future again for Oregon City. And I think this is an excellent time for us to really look kind of strategically at where we're going and what we're going to be doing. So I'm excited to be part of that, and really look forward to working with you all as a committee. I understand that you're very excited to engage in, looking forward and, really getting your arms around some of this work. And so that's great. And I want to work with you on that. So just happy to be here. So, thanks.
Well, we're excited to have you, Scott. I know it was a process to get a director hired, and yeah, we're excited to work with you. And thank you, for that introduction and kind of breakdown of everything.
Yeah, thanks.
I believe we can move through to the next portion of business is the open PRAC seats and interview update. Corey, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Sure. So to provide an update, we have decided, city staff, along with the mayor, has been involved. She was not able to attend tonight. She was going to potentially sit in on the interviews, but because she couldn't attend tonight, that's why we decided to forego interviews for right now. Because we have this meeting, we have June. Typically, we cancel July because of concerts in the park. We'll have August, September, October, and then we cancel November. So our new person would, there's 2 seats available. One would end at the end of this term. So a new person would be around for 4 or 5 meetings. And then the other seat is through the end of 2026. So we have decided that at the end of this year, we will open everything back up. I've been in touch with the candidates. There were 4 that were interested. One of them did not qualify because we have already 2 represented from that neighborhood. And so they know that if the interest is still there in December, to certainly let us know. And I'll just keep their applications on file. So does everybody feel good about that for the most part? We also, I know that we talked a little bit about making sure that the dynamic here wasn't interrupted, because you guys are great. And so maybe adding somebody else to that mid-year could feel clunky. And so starting fresh at the end of this year, I think will be a good opportunity.
Yep, I mean, I think that makes a lot of sense. It's just, at this point, they'd also have to get trained for a meeting, so they'd be around 2 or 3 meetings before they'd have to put in for everything. Are you going to reach out to the candidates and let them know?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Perfect. Well, hopefully they reapply back when we reopen it at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any final things on that? All right, we're going to move to our next point of business, the master plan update and the project list update and prioritization.
Okay, so as you all know, and I know this committee has been very involved, we've been working through the Parks and Rec master plan update for well over 2 years, probably closer to pushing 3 years or something. And we have that document created. It is actually, it got kind of blessed by the city commission last year, I think in maybe the middle of the calendar year or so, from what I understand. But what hadn't happened, and I think somewhere along the way, staff picked that up, realized that and picked that up, is it needed to be adopted into the city's comprehensive plan as essentially an addendum or, an ancillary document to that. So that really becomes part of the land use of the city. So that is actually happening right now. I know that this committee was engaged in that work, and now we're just taking it across the finish line for some of the formalities. So we've, in the last few weeks, actually, since I've been here, I've got to attend a city commission work session around that, where we just sort of re-teed it up with the commission, made sure they understood that, because it's coming back to them for final adoption. We went to the planning commission, and they had to approve it, and that kind of moved it forward. So then the next and final step is on June 4th. It will be presented to the commission for that final adoption into the comprehensive plan. And based on conversations, I don't anticipate that, there being any issues with that. So that's kind of where we're at with that. We're making it, the total formality of adopting the master plan. And then now, where we're at and what we wanted to talk with the committee about tonight is sort of starting to unpack that and look at, those big initiatives. And so what we have is one of the documents or a piece of that plan is this, the project list, and that was attached to your agenda. And I think, we've pulled that up here. And so, this is really looking at existing facilities that we want to upgrade, and then looking at, identifying new parcels that are new areas where we need more parkland, upgrading facilities, or looking at, new facilities, like do we want to replace the pool and build something new, those kinds of things. And those are all captured in this list. So I think what we're looking for tonight is maybe the start of what might be a multi-meeting process for you, and that's really kind of up to you, and you can give us direction as to how you want to kind of move this forward. But what I've heard very clearly since I've, as I was coming through the process of onboarding for this position, and in conversations that I've had, is my understanding is that you as a committee are very much want to engage in this type of work with the city and help kind of form, how we do the processes of looking at essentially implementing this plan over the course of years, and sort of setting that on that course, and also how we want to engage the public in that process. So this really needs to be a very much a public facing process, and we want to do as much community engagement around this as we can, as we start looking at, here are the things on the list. There are lots of things. It's a very aspirational list. Where do we start? What are the priorities, and how do we start working down that checklist? And so I want to sort of tee that up with you tonight, and perhaps you want to have a conversation around how do you want to unpack that? How do you want to work together with staff, and then ultimately with the community, to look at how we're going to prioritize this? And so I think it's really just that conversation to start it tonight. And then we can take some direction from you and come back and kind of really then start getting a little more specific about that. But whether you've had an opportunity to review this, but I wasn't planning, it's a 12-page document. I wasn't planning on walking through the whole thing. If you've either looked at it, or you can look at it on your own, but it's all captured there. Tom is online with us tonight, and I want to offer Tom the opportunity to add anything to what I've said, or to clarify anything further.
No, Scott, I think that was great. The only thing I'll just remind everybody, if you remember, we talked about some of the goals for PRAC. We talked a lot about kind of that idea of a 5-year CIP, and then also how do we do community engagement. And I think this project could be an opportunity to work on both of those simultaneously. And so kind of what we're looking for you to work on tonight is, what does that community engagement look like?
And I'll just add one more thing. So Tom just mentioned the 5-year CIP, capital improvement plan. Tom and I have had some conversation, but we've also, we're having this conversation kind of internally with city leadership as well. We would like to potentially model something along the lines of what our public works department does. They do a very good job of taking a CIP 5-year plan, and they roll that over every year. So every year it pushes one more year forward, and then you tag on another year, you check the things off that you've done. You match that up with the funds that are available, and in our case, it's a whole slew of different funding sources. It's SDCs and grants and different sources of money that we have available. And so you actually align the prioritization of those projects on a 5-year plan with the funding that you project to have. And so while we're having this conversation with you, we're also kind of internally looking at doing something more formal like that within parks. We haven't really we haven't really done a very formalized 5-year CIP, and we want to get that in place. So that will align with this work, and we can actually prioritize and say, these are the things we want to do in each of the years, so. And so I'm going to pause and I'll let you digest that and perhaps, ask any questions of us or have any conversation you want to around that. I know this is kind of, it's like, where do we start? But maybe once we can kind of just get the thoughts going and think about how we want to do that.
All we want is everything.
Yeah,
Yes, okay?
absolutely.
But it'd be nice to go ahead and divide this up into projects. And I know that big, huge things like a pool and recreation center is way down the line, but it's not too early to talk about it and get the public involved. But other things like the Clackamas Park and the boat launch and, just community activities around here are huge to get on this list for us to go ahead and look at. But I guess my idea of community involvement is look at what public events the city is already promoting, whether it is a parade or an art fair or something, and have a city booth there to go ahead and capture the general public that does attend that.
Yeah, I was actually going to mimic something, but I didn't know when exactly to get to that part of like something we're going to talk about today, movies in the park or concerts, in the park, or having a booth there to engage citizens, show them the parks that we have and kind of get some input from them. I know we've done a lot of surveys that have been out. I've been on this committee 3 years, and I feel I've seen 3 different types of surveys of getting community outreach, but just talking to people, getting them to engage with us on what they want to see as their priorities as well. I mean, as we are the advisory committee for the Parks and Rec Department, just getting more of those opinions there. Having part of our committee there, having part of parks there would be good, and just make a note of where we're thinking and why we're thinking that as a group, us together, and then, what the community thinks. And I think involving them and making them part of the process where it's not just link they click and fill out at home, they can talk, they can kind of see what we're thinking. I think that would help a lot of people feeling inclusive and see that we are moving towards something. We're doing something, this is what we want to see. So I would mimic what Tim said as well on getting active for the events we're having, because summer is the time to do it. And we're right on that doorstep right now to enter a prime time for that.
We're not going to segue quite yet into the summer events,
I don't want to.
but we are going to talk a little bit about a welcome booth and
Okay.
some volunteer opportunities. So that could be a great chance to take a look at that.
Yeah, this could be a very wide-ranging conversation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm just going off Tim's cue of where we can kind of talk on. And
Yeah.
Sorry, Ken, did you have something?
Well, yeah, I mean,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Wait.
You look like you're ready to go.
No, I wanted to make sure the mic was on and all that. So the challenge, of course, is if you're doing a 5-year CIP, you want to get started, you want to get the CIP adopted and going in. So getting public involvement in that part of it, to find out what the community priorities are, it might be a little tough at this point, because theoretically, we already did that with the master plan. I know we didn't, but theoretically we did. But, at least for the first year, as you move farther out into the years, but, they've got a budget almost adopted, so we have to get that year one kind of set. But that's an opportunity, though. If there are projects in that first year, then I would think it would be kind of incumbent upon us to maybe visit the neighborhoods where some of those projects are at, and go to that neighborhood, for example, and say, because we all represent a neighborhood, right?
Yep.
So at some point, maybe with a staff member and a PRAC member, go to the neighborhood and say, okay, this is kind of what we're queuing up for this year and maybe the next year, and then kind of work it out through that way. And then you can start getting some of that feedback. But if
Sure.
we wait,
Yeah,
we're going to be, it's a biennial budget, so they're theoretically going to have the first 2 years already done. Probably within the next month or two, I think, right? Yep. So we should talk about what we're gonna do, I
Yeah.
mean, because.
What was budgeted?
Yeah, what's budgeted and where we're at, and then we can start kind of doing a little bit more exploratory stuff in years 3 through,
Yeah.
well, 3 through 12, yeah, because every year you're gonna keep adding to it. I did have a question though, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but some projects you want to have on the CIP, but they might not be budgeted yet or funded. Because you want to have something there because you don't want to miss an opportunity. So if it's something where you think maybe a grant's going to pop up down the road or something like that, where maybe in year 1 it's not funded, but it's in year 4, we think we can get a grant for that. And so have you seen a CIP where you've kind of projected, that, well, we don't really have the money, we don't know exactly, but we sure are going to look for every opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, Ken, is, and you push those out a little bit further, so you're maybe
But they're on the list.
1 and 2, and maybe year 3, you're actually looking at probably real funding that you think you've got in place, and then, maybe the last couple of years, and that's where you kind of keep rolling that forward over the year. And I also wanted to, there was a perfect segue, the first part of your comments about the stuff that's already in the budget for the next biennium, which is just about to be adopted, and I'm going to give you an update about that under the staff reports, and mention some of the projects that are already identified based on prior direction and I think commission goals and different things that we landed some. So you're exactly right. We're kind of already on a running start in the 5-year plan, but I think we're just talking about really projecting it out and being more forward looking. So I think we've got a couple of years worth of projects already budgeted and lined up, and the idea about the opportunistic things that might come along, the funding that we don't know for sure yet. There's grants, some things just kind of come up as opportunities, and so also related to that, I want to note that we have a pretty decent. We have pretty decent reserves right now in the SDC fund that should something come up where it's like, hey, there's a piece of property available, this is on the target list for the master plan in an area that we need a park, this opportunity came to us. So we can also be flexible and shift gears for things that aren't necessarily budgeted yet, but we have some reserves and we can pull that in. So there's some things like that, and we'll kind of work through some of that as well. But I really appreciate those comments.
All right. Any other comments? I've got a lot. I just don't want to take up the whole time. So
I can certainly advance the slides as well if we want to look at, I know that we've gone over this in depth.
We didn't go through this page by page last time.
You might have, good.
But if you guys want to see anything, I'm happy to advance.
One question I had is have we really kind of started, or are we at a point where we've kind of identified potential property acquisitions? I know that's always a touchy, you don't want to label somebody's property, but we know what neighborhoods we're going to be looking at, right?
It's more of the general, exactly.
It's a bubble map. I mean, it's kind of somewhere in this
So we've done
area.
We've done that, not again, exactly. You don't land it on any specific property because you lose your negotiating ability at that point. But yes, so that's part of it, is that those areas are identified, and in fact, I think some of that is listed in the project list of these
And do you know if SDCs are eligible for option to purchase? So if you get right of first refusal, can you use the SDC fund for that? I'm not sure if you can.
I'm not.
I mean, the rules have changed a little bit. But.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a specific thing, and so I'm going to be careful and say I'm not sure, but that's a great question. Yeah, if ours allow that, or
Yeah, I think that obviously, if we can get out ahead of the development to get some of those properties, I mean, because we're rooting for development to get the SDC funds, but at the same time, then you don't have the property. So
it's our backward system.
Right.
All right, so we've got a lot of things to go on of this. So from what I'm hearing so far, and I think I would agree with it, is because we've done so much data collection and surveys that, I would love to kind of think of this as two-part with community engagement, and you're going to talk about this in a moment with the budget of what we're working on over the next 2 years. Here's like an ETA, here's our goals the next 2 years, that's set in this budget, and then try to get engagement on the long term. So I think there's two parts in this that we can do through volunteering this summer at different events that we have. Is there a way or a time that we can set up, I don't know, like a handout, something we can give people on kind of where our priorities are with the budget, or what were your thoughts on that, Scott?
Yeah, definitely. We can have some type of, something that you can actually give to people that it would identify, maybe it identifies some of the things that are on our list of, future goals and also the things that we're going to be working on in the more immediate future, yeah.
Yeah, like I work in government, I don't want to say like, this is going to be done on this date, because I know how things
Doesn't work like that.
No, it does not work like that, so that's not what I mean, but I hear a lot of, because I interact with a lot of families at parks, I interact with just a lot of different notes, and they're like, what is Parks and Rec doing? Like, well, where does our budget go, and where does everything go? And I'm like, listen to the committee meetings, here's where everything is, but to be able to really use these awesome events that Melissa and her team and the Pioneer Center and everyone does to engage with those just in person in a more natural way would be just excellent to kind of see and have and start to create now.
Yeah, we can do something like that for sure.
All right.
So did
Go ahead,
all
Joyce.
of you get an email from Taylor Miller from the city? This was on Tuesday, and Taylor Miller sent this thing about volunteering to do things with the city and the paperwork that you need to fill out to do that. But please note what they put there. Okay.
Oh, no subject,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so is that kind of what we would need to do if we wanted to be at these public events, say that we want to have a booth at the movies in the park, like we have done in the past, and gave out door prizes, and it was a lot of fun, it's but would we need to have these approved?
I do believe, I talked to Taylor last week, as I was looking for the volunteer opportunities that I could present to you guys. And he did say that we are requesting that everybody now complete a volunteer application. And I don't know if that's to make it official or what that looks like.
And I
what the
guess if we
change-
filled it out for one event, like when I filled one out for planting at the,
Yes,
okay.
yeah.
So that covers it for the rest of the year or something, I hope, I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it is a
I don't know
annual
if we got
cycle.
background checked for the planting project. Do you remember if we did or not? I
Oh,
don't think we
maybe
did.
not.
I think that's a requirement now too, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do see Tom raised his hand. Tom, did you have something to add in on this or something different?
Just something to add in on this, and we were actually going to talk a little bit more about this when we get to the summer events piece, but kind of the idea behind having people complete a volunteer application, we have some specific tasks that do require a background check. So being an alcohol monitor, parking, things like that. Things that have a little bit more liability, we do background checks for. Probably if PRAC was interested in just like participating in setting up a booth, that would be a little bit different. So yeah, we were going to talk a little bit more about that, but just kind of the context on there is Taylor's email went out to everybody who's interested in volunteering. So it wasn't just PRAC, it's also a bunch of other people as well.
I think I filled out one of those forms before also, but it was for an ivy pole over at Waterboard Park, and it was just a signature, and that's all it was, so it's not going to take a lot of time.
All right, well, let's try to finish out our general business. We can talk about the budget update and volunteer events after this. Is there any other thoughts in regards to the project list update that we have in front of us or prioritization? Right now, I think the conversation is just setting what we have in the budget that's going to come out for the next 2 years and then focus our prioritization after those 2 years, after engaging with the community over the summer events. Is there anything else on that, Ken?
Well, I think it would be kind of maybe a good idea to kind of sell what we are doing for the
Yes.
next 2 years. Get out and try to get a little bit of momentum, and community interest in, so if a certain neighborhood doesn't get something in the next biennium, hey, but, in year 3 or year 4, so it's kind of important to kind of just get out there.
Giving them hope.
Yeah, exactly. And
Like-
especially if we're looking at other funding opportunities that we may decide that, we need to take some steps to come up with some additional money somehow. I think to kind of generate a little bit of excitement of what we're doing so far, probably goes a long way towards success.
Like the students at school always ask me, Miss G, when are we gonna get that skate park at Tyrone Woods?
Right?
I would love to be able to give them,
But we don't have any concept of any kind of list at this point that
Well, we do.
the city's
I
working on.
mean, we've got basically a 2-year budget that's being adopted, so we start with that list that's already going, and then.
have you seen the list of our projects?
I have
on the
not.
budget?
I'm gonna walk through that in just
No,
a few
we're
minutes.
getting there.
All right.
But I think,
I'm excited to hear this.
yeah, it would be
Set
good
the stage for ya.
to sell some of that.
Well, all right. Any final comments on the master plan update? I think we're excited to hear about staff reports today, which will kind of maybe bring us back to this, but I want to open it up in case there's anything else in regards to the project list update. It looks like, everything went through last meeting will hopefully be implemented by June 4th, the change that we made. Then prioritization and how to prioritize will be a conversation we can have with the budget update and what we have in there for that. Any other comments on this portion?
Yeah, so first, the master plan is a big umbrella, and then the master plan for like Clackamas Park is underneath that umbrella. So we have to get one approved before the other.
Right.
Okay.
Okay, then yeah, we can move forward into staff reports, unless there's any other general business that is not on the list here.
All right, yeah, so I'll just kind of roll through these, and I have a couple additional items that are not on your agenda as well. So first is the system development charges methodology update. You all have been, I think, engaged in that in the past to some degree, at least is what I understand. Is that accurate a little bit? Okay. So that process we've gone through that STC update process, and it is, there's a draft methodology that we are planning to take to the City Commission on June 18th. There's a public hearing that is going to be scheduled. So we attached that to your agenda. If there's any kind of final conversation, I guess I wasn't certain as to how much you were or weren't engaged in that. Again, how that kind of attaches to the last conversation. That's a big piece of our development funding, obviously. So this is mostly just informational, but if there's any conversation or feedback as we go into bringing this to the commission for adoption, we'll be doing that in the next few weeks.
I don't think we have that attached to the agenda.
No, it's
I
actually
apologize.
attached to the packet online. Our materials
There you go.
tonight were several pages. And so I only printed out the vital pieces, but that was attached it to the agenda packet.
Yeah, if you go back to the link, it'll,
On our online packet.
Yes, correct.
There it is, okay.
so any other questions or feedback on that?
Well, I think, I guess just for clarification, the SDC methodology and update will not solve all of the funding problems, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's a bucket. And there's probably 3, maybe 4 different buckets. So at some point, that's what you want to try to do is figure out, okay, we're going to use part of this bucket, part of this bucket, part of this bucket, and part of this bucket.
Yep.
And we just don't know what that 4th bucket might be. You've got grants, and you have the SDCs, and you have whatever money ekes out of the general fund, which is probably not much.
Yep.
And so,
Yep, and we've got another one of the buckets is the Metro local share money
Right,
that, from the
right.
bond measure that was passed at this point now several years ago, and we're still finalizing that, and, so there are a number of things. I appreciate that clarification. So yeah, the STC, even the updated methodology doesn't solve for all the things that we want to do. If we tried to pay for all that through the STCs, they would be so astronomically high that we would never get away with doing that.
Build here, right?
Yeah, exactly. The developers wouldn't like us very well, and I don't think that would fly. So you have to find that place where, you know, it lands it's appropriate, but it still gets you partway there. But yeah, I appreciate that clarification, Ken. All right. Yes, so the budget update, and we were just talking about this a little bit. Toggling a little bit here on my screen. Give me just 1 second. Okay. So.
That's up here too as well.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, we did attach the Parks and Rec portion of the budget. So we're almost at the point of adopting a budget for the next biennium, which is July 1 of this year through June 30 of through 27. So it's the 25 through 27 biennium. So for Parks and Rec, we are, I want to just give you a little summary. And I don't think my comments are going to quite align with the slides here. I can go to anything specific you might want to take a look at, but I'm just going to give you kind of an overview, and then we can talk about anything specific you have questions about. So, so at this point, the Budget Committee has approved the budget, and now it's handed off to the City Commission. And in the month of June, they will be adopting that. I think their first crack at that is on June 4th, and if they adopt it, then that's great, and if not, then it goes to the second meeting in June. And then we would have an adopted budget. So for Parks and Recreation, just a high level kind of highlights for you in our proposed budget. Our total biennium operating budget is about $13.5 million. We did make some FTE reductions in the budget, given some direction from the city. If you may be aware, but there were some constraints with the general fund, which is mostly what our operating money comes from. So we did end up with a total 3.26 FTE reduction department-wide from the current budget that ends June 30th of this year. And so that includes the administrative assistant, which is Corey, and she moved to a different department, but thankfully she's still supporting the work of PRAC, and for the foreseeable future, we'll see how that goes. But that position has been vacated, and we're just basically kind of absorbing that work. One of our parks maintenance specialists has moved over to facilities. Facilities used to be kind of more in this department, and it's separated out now. So it's like that position, you know, just kind of basically slid over to a new department, but it looks like a reduction in parks. One of our parks maintenance specialists is going to move to aquatics and recreation. Essentially, it's going to become a new aquatic coordinator. We're taking a position from one part of our operation, and we're saying we need to prioritize something. We need a second person in charge over at the pool, and so that's what we're doing there. And then we've basically a 1.57 reduction in our seasonal parks maintenance work. We have basically eliminated all of our seasonal staffing. So all the full-time parks maintenance staff are just taking all that work and absorbing it. So that's kind of a significant thing. Our revenues that we've projected, we have adjusted some of our revenue targets in the department.
Is this another page, Corey?
It's not, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Yeah, this is just me giving you kind of my summary of things. It's all kind of represented here in the number of pages that are up on the screen, but this is just a kind of a highlight thing. Our overall cost recovery for our revenue is about 40% across the department, just for your awareness. So all of our operational stuff is all absorbed into this. There will be potentially some minor impacts to some of that reduction that I talked about in the staffing, but I think what we're attempting to do is move some pieces around a little bit to creatively, hopefully reduce that impact as best we can. And then to your conversation just a little bit ago on the project list, I wanted to mainly focus here on what the capital projects are that we've got budgeted in the 25-27 budget. So the highlights of that are we have the EOT site and facility and the aquatic center, the pool. We have budgeted for master plans for each of those facilities, which would basically help us envision what the future of those are going to look like. So we have a total budget for both of those. I think what we're going to end up doing likely is doing those under one contract. So we would have a firm that does master planning of facilities, doing both of those for efficiency purposes, and then we would probably have some technical work within each of those. So somebody that focuses on heritage and historical types of facilities might be different than somebody that focuses on aquatic facilities, but there'll be one overarching consultant. So that's in the, and those are linked directly to the commission's goals, just for your awareness. Clackamet Park, so implementing the next phase and really start getting going on our what we're going to do next and what's going to be first up there. So we've actually budgeted $400,000. Oh, I should say we budgeted $300,000 total for the master plans of those two facilities. We have $400,000 for the Clackamet Park implementation of whatever the first phase there is going to look like, and so that includes all the engineering and the construction documents. There'll still be some engagement, and we'll definitely be talking to PRAC about this because there's still some decisions to be made, even though we have a master plan for Clackamet. It's not as specific as it needs to be to actually do projects. So, for example, where is the boat launch going to be located? It's a little bit squishy, and we need to say this is exactly where it's going to be, for example, and some of the other details. We have money for, we have $505,000 for the Wesley Lynn Dog Park and the Hillendale restroom replacement. We're gonna use some of the Metro local share funding for those projects. In fact, Tom and I went to the Gaffney Lane Neighborhood Association meeting this week on Tuesday to talk about the dog park at Wesley Lynn, and they gave some feedback, and I believe PRAC gave some feedback on that at some point as well. We can certainly plan to bring back here's what we're planning to do and get your feedback on that. We are planning a phase 2 of the Parents of Murdered Children Memorial at Mountain View Cemetery. This will be paid for from donations to that organization, so no general fund money. We're going to do roof replacement, repair at the Pioneer Center for just under $300,000 we've got budgeted. That's also going to be paid for using the Pioneer Center donation fund. And then, just kind of generally, we're trying to tie the capital projects that we have in the budget to grant funding and SDCs primarily, or the Metro local share money, and not really using general fund sources for the most part. Tom, I'm gonna kick it to you and see, do you have any other comments on any of this? Anything you'd like to add?
Oh, that was a great summary. I'm looking through my notes just to see if there's anything else, but yeah, I think just to echo what Scott just said, our kind of strategy while we were developing this was to focus on projects that we could complete in this biennium that were not going to be affected if general fund was reduced. So we did see that, and I think that strategy paid off in the end because we can still accomplish a lot of work. I do want to point out with the park seasonals, just from an operational standpoint, it will have an effect. Our main strategy with that was to utilize those seasonals for weekend and event coverage. So without those seasonals, we're going to rely a little more on volunteers, on our park hosts, posting more frequently about how important it is to pick up your trash after shelters, and look at some operational changes to maybe hold people more accountable for shelter rentals in particular, as we move through the biennium without that support.
So this is just me giving you a verbal summary, and we can capture all this in writing, and we'll bring something back to you a little more formal than that. But I think that's that list that you were talking about a little bit ago that we can go out with right now and say, this is what we're working on. These are the things we're looking at. And then there's going to be the more, a little bit further out in those 5-year plans. Any questions about that? I know I kind of rattled through stuff quickly, but I just wanted to give you a snapshot.
How many seasonals did you have last year?
Tom, can you help with that one?
Yeah, so last year we had 2 seasonals throughout the season, one of whom actually had to leave a little before the season ended due to some own things in their personal life. So I would say that last year we got by with about 1.5 seasonals total, which is actually even lower than the 1.57 FTE that you see there.
All right, thank you.
How does that affect your, the spray pads and things? Because I know the testing requirements have
Yeah. I think
escalated, I guess would be a good word.
I'm going to also say, Tom, feel free to jump in, but I think that work is mostly done typically by our full-time staff, and there's some training specifically around that.
Right,
But,
yeah, volunteers, you can't really use
right.
for that.
Tom, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, Ken, I think kind of what you're referring to is for like recirculating systems where you're having to do the testing like you would for a pool. Our spray pads actually drain into the ground, so we are not required to do that testing. So that is a benefit of our systems. They're a little older and they're grandfathered into kind of the old rules. So all of the maintenance on those systems is performed by our full-time staff. If something were to happen at the spray pads on the weekends, we would get called in through the call-out system, and somebody that would be able to fix it would come and fix it.
Perfect. Good. Anything else?
Yeah, have you got 1 or 2 quick portions? I mean, I think the number 1 question we're going to get in kind of the hot topic in the community is going to be Clackamas Park. And I guess with the first phase that's there, all that I wanted to do is make a comment on when we do notes, just first phase, just highlighting what that means for people, because I get asked all the time, when is a shovel going to be on the ground? I have to explain that I know we're nowhere close to that yet. Just kind of defining that when we kind of make up what that means. That's all I was going to say.
And I appreciate that question, and it lets me provide a little more clarity. So all the things that I just listed and kind of went through quickly, we're going to be bringing those back to you and talking more detail and more specifics around those. And some of that we'll definitely be seeking your input. If there's going to be a public component, we'll come to you first and say, this is what we're looking at. What do you want? How do you suggest that we might go forward? So I appreciate that question and that comment, and that's absolutely what we'll be doing.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, we're just getting it teed up, and then there's going to be stuff moving forward. The last thing I do want to add to this is this isn't really reflected in the budget per se, but it is part of this discussion. It goes back to the master plan conversation, looking at the future and building new things potentially, as well as the current budget and some of the questions that you've just asked about. What are the impacts of these staffing level reductions? Is our challenge to take care of what we have, right? So there's the development side, the capital side. Those are typically different sources of money that are restricted and cannot be used for maintenance. And the maintenance usually falls squarely on the general fund money that is constrained. And so I think also part of this conversation that we'll be having with you and with the community and the commission is, how do we pay for the funding to operate these things, whether it's parks or facilities, and do we start looking at something that's a different way to fund things than we are right now? And what that means is to be determined, but just that's on our radar as well, and we'll certainly be having some conversations with PRAC about that. And do we look at generating a different funding source that we don't have for parks right now, potentially? So that kind of ties in with our operational stuff. I'm going to kick it back over to Tom to talk about our summer events.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. So yeah, we're geared up for summer. There's been a lot of planning work that's happened. So I'm here just to talk a little bit about what we've got going on for the summer and some opportunities to volunteer and how PRAC can stay engaged and how the community can stay engaged. So I'm going to start with movies in the park. We've mixed things up a little bit this year. If you remember, we talked about doing a PG-13 movie. So we have 4 movies planned. On July 25th, we're going to have Inside Out 2 at Wesley Lynn. On August 5th, which is a Tuesday, we're actually partnering with the police department on National Night Out. When National Night Out concludes at 8 o'clock, we're going to transition EOT over to a movie, and we're going to show Ferris Bueller's Day Off down there at EOT, which I personally am very excited about. August 15th, we've got Moana 2 at Chapin Park. And August 22nd, we have Mufasa at Hillendale Park. And so everything except Ferris Bueller's Day Off came directly from the voting. Ferris Bueller's Day Off was the highest comment that we received on what PG-13 movie you'd like to see. So that's what we ended up going with. Any questions about movies?
The volunteer opportunities that will be there?
Movies are probably better suited for like a booth, and based on our conversation earlier about kind of that master plan update, it'd be great to have, you know, some kind of opportunity for you guys to be there, to communicate with the community what these projects are, have staff there to help do that, maybe do a giveaway, maybe a link to a website, something that, you know, gives people the opportunity to come talk about Parks and Rec and what we've got going on. So if you're interested, let us know, and we will hook you up with our program coordinators and staff that are working those events. All right.
Yeah, did you want to run through the rest of the events, Tom?
Yeah, so moving on to National Night Out. National Night Out, as I mentioned, is on August 5th this year. It's going to be down at the Oregon Trail from 5:30 to 8. We're partnering with police department on producing that event. They take on the bulk of the work of getting all the vendors and everything. We help coordinate the park usage and the logistics of that. So it is their event, but we do partner with them on helping produce it. And a lot of the city departments come out and do this. This is another great opportunity for PRAC to come engage with the community. We will have a Parks and Rec booth there with a variety of staff. And, you know, typically we have a lot of handouts, we have a lot of flyers for our upcoming fall programming. So this would be another great opportunity to come talk about what we're doing over the next biennium, what projects, and get some feedback. We can always use volunteers as well for the event itself, helping manage parking, just kind of being, you know, assistants and at the information booth and things like that. If you want to have more of like a volunteer role and less so as a member of PRAC, there's a bunch of opportunities related to that as well. First City Celebration. This is typically, you know, this event is produced down on Main Street through DOCA. It's July 24th, and it runs from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. This year we're doing something a little bit different. In the past, traditionally Parks and Rec has had a booth. We're going kind of more citywide. We're working with our folks in, you know, our community engagement specialists and our communications folks to get some more information just throughout the city and have some more city staff there to be able to answer some broader questions. Since this is not a Parks and Rec focused event, it's more of a broader community event. In the past, we've received a lot of questions about what's going on in the city that, you know, involve other departments. And so we've worked with those other departments to make this kind of a broader, more citywide focused opportunity. But it is a good opportunity for Parks and Rec specifically to engage with a lot of people who maybe don't come to movies, don't come to concerts, but do come to First City Celebration. So 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. we'll have a booth there. If you want to man a booth, if you want to staff that booth and hand out some flyers or provide some information, we'd love to have you. Same with 4th of July. Obviously, 4th of July is going to be on July 4th this year. We've worked a lot with, Taylor has worked a great deal to improve on the event that we did last year. So we actually have 2 bands this year. We're going to have a kids zone. We're going to have an extended laser light show. All of that is going to take place at End of the Oregon Trail. You should see some flyers coming around town soon, giving some more details, see some more social media. So keep an eye out for that. Laser light show will start at sunset as it gets dark. So we don't quite have a time yet picked for it, but that's why we're doing the 2 bands, to kind of fill out more time for that. That was one of the pieces of feedback we received last year on the event, was there was a kind of a gap in between when the band played and when the laser light show went off. So we're adjusting that with 2 different bands. Johnny Limbo is one of the bands for 4th of July, and I believe this is his farewell tour. So
no.
it will be very busy. And then Concerts in the Park, we have our traditional concert series. The flyer was in your online packet, but I'll just read through some of the acts and the dates. July 10th, we have Ants in the Kitchen, which is kind of a rock soul blues band. July 17th, we have Band After Midnight, which is an ABBA tribute. July 24th, which would traditionally be our PRAC meeting, and that's what I'm calling our quote-unquote PRAC night. We'd love to see you all there. Is Nate Botsford, and that's Country Rock Hybrid. July 31st is The Fighting Foos, which is a Foo Fighters tribute. That's one that I'm personally very excited for. August 7th is Kalimba, an Earth, Wind, and Fire tribute. And then finishing out the series is August 14th with Hit Machine and their Danceable Hits. And for all of these events, particularly 4th of July, Concerts in the Park and Movies in the Park, but also National Night Out, just want to thank all of our various sponsors, all the different people from the community who contribute to make these events happen, and all the community volunteers. Taylor and Cecily are really doing a great job this year of recruiting community volunteers to help supplement the staff and make this more of a community-focused event and make it something everybody can participate in. So concert series runs Thursdays, 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. down at End of the Oregon Trail. Concert site opens at 4. We have on-site parking, and we'll have food and beverage sales. OC Brewing is joining us again to provide the alcohol sales, and we look forward to seeing you there.
Any questions for Tom about any of that? I've got a couple more items for you, but I want to pause there for a second in case there's any questions.
Can I pop back up? I think that Tom mentioned that the first city celebration is on the 24th of July, and it's actually the 26th of July.
I'm sorry, 26th.
That's okay. My birthday is the 24th, and that's why it stood out to me. I know it's not on my birthday.
Not happening, right?
Because there's actually a concert on the 24th, which is Thursday.
Yep.
Are we able to go over really quickly? Taylor did give me a list of volunteer opportunities. Do you mind if I run through those, Tom?
That'd be great.
Okay. So for concerts in the park specifically, Taylor wanted me to let you guys know that cleanup crew is an option. Traffic control, crossing guards, we do plan to have additional parking across the street from EOT now, and so we could use some help guiding the attendees across the street safely. Hanging out at the kid zone, if that is what speaks to you, then God bless you. So that is an opportunity. Also, the welcome booth, where you could represent PRAC and represent concerts in the park. And then an alcohol monitor, which does require an additional certification that you would be taking on the cost yourself. I believe it's $15 or around there. But alcohol monitors are certainly
Is that
needed.
different than a server's permit?
That I don't know. It
an
might be the
OLCC
same.
card.
Yeah. Through OLCC.
I know I used to do wine tastings and had to have something.
Yeah, it might,
The same.
I think it is the same. I can confirm that for sure. So those are the few volunteer opportunities. And if anybody is interested, then feel free to get in touch with me or directly to Taylor Miller.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah.
So the other couple of items I had, first of those is the cemetery fee increase. I know that was something that you all weighed in on. That went to the city commission last night and they approved it. That included, so the cost recovery goal was set at 75%, and so these fees achieve that. They're actually a little bit above that. We're also adding an inflationary factor to the fees, and annuals like a CIP or a CPI. We were talking about CIPs earlier. CPI, like a consumer price index or some such thing where it's an annual inflation. We don't have that tied to our current fees. Our current fees have been in place and have remained exactly the same since 2009. So we're way behind. And this is way overdue. And then there are some new fees that were added in for some services that we provide that weren't in the existing fee schedule. The other piece of this is we're adding essentially what is like a perpetual maintenance fund. So there's kind of our main categories of fees, there will be a percentage attached that will be paid when something is purchased. When a service is purchased, that will go into this perpetual care fund, so to speak. We're going to be, the council or commission adopted this last night, but what we need to do is follow up with our finance team. We're going to bring back it's creating a new fund for the city that will be dedicated for, so what we don't have right now is, you say if you buy a plot and do a burial, you're paying a one-time fee that kind of goes for, our current level of maintenance, but it doesn't really project for kind of that future maintenance, which is what this would do. So that, again, that was approved at last night's city commission meeting. And then the last thing I have is Memorial Day is this coming Monday. And at Mountain View Cemetery, we have our annual Memorial Day ceremony that is at 10 a.m. Usually goes for, I think, about an hour. And it is a really well done event with lots of speakers. And we get a flyover from, I think, the Air National Guard. And just making sure everybody's aware of that. Again, Monday at 10 a.m. at Mountain View Cemetery. That's all I've got. Oh, yeah,
I was going to ask if we're going to go over the Metro enhancement grant.
Did you want to do that under your member reports, or do you want me to talk about that, or?
I was just going to ask you to talk about it if PRAC wants to.
And so Tom, we're talking about the Metro enhancement grant and the letter of support for the Pioneer Center project. Do you want to give a little briefing on that?
Yeah. So as I'm sure you're all aware, the Metro Enhancement Grant, which is funded through tipping fees at the transfer station, can be used for a variety of different purposes. That grant application is currently open. The grant committee this year made some changes, and it allows the city departments to apply every year, which is a benefit for Parks and Rec. It's limited to a certain dollar amount, which is, I believe, $80,000 total across the city departments. So we're trying to compete for some of that funding. So Cecily and team at the Pioneer Center have put together a grant application to replace the slider doors. If you think about their main entrance, those slider doors there that open and close, they're a little outdated. It'd be nice to have something newer, a little more accessible. So we've put together a project, and I'm trying to find the grant application for the exact dollar amount, but it's around $23,000, I believe, total for the work. So we're going to ask for some funding from Metro. We'll use some of that donation money that we have set aside for Pioneer Center to cover our match component. And what we're looking for is a letter of support from PRAC for that work. And I believe Corey may have a copy of that we can pull up on the screen just to show real quick.
the grant. Oh, there's my mic. Sorry. So if you want to review that, we can take a minute to talk about it and see if this is something as a committee that we want to support.
Tom, did you mention that this is it's from the transfer station, so it doesn't compete with green space money, park money?
That's correct. It's not competing with park money.
Right.
The total project cost is $23,595. We're seeking $14,157 in grant dollars and about $9,400 in matching cash. So we do have that on hand in our donation account. This would be a nice way to get some additional funding to offset that.
We're looking to start a motion.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. Yep, I believe that would be the next. If you've reviewed it, the next part would be a motion to endorse this as a committee to get the grant.
I make a motion to go ahead and support this as a PRAC and move forward with the city.
Excellent. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Corey, can we get a roll call for this?
Ken Wooster,
Yes.
Joyce Gifford,
Yes.
Tim Leonhardt,
Yes.
Tim West,
Yes.
and Melissa Dio. Yes. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom.
One point that I do want to make is the application is due tomorrow. We knew that we had this meeting tonight and we wanted to talk to you first. So if you could get a signed copy of it tonight, that would be great.
Yeah, we will make sure to do that tonight, Tom.
We've got it right here, ready for Tim's signature on behalf of the committee.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent. Are there any other staff reports or portion of business, Scott or Tom, or
No,
Corey
that's
you want
it.
to bring up?
That's it for us tonight. Thanks.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and move to member reports. I can leave this up to members of the committee.
I'll start. Tom, last meeting I had asked you to inquire about the locked gate at Hillendale Park from the new parking lot right by the courthouse. And you were going to check into it. I went to go play pickleball there the other day and the gate was locked. So this is a county fence that is right where the county offenders, if they offend, they've got to go ahead and do some sort of cleanup and garbage duty. There's a building right there, but behind that, there's a path and a gate that goes right to the Hillendale pickleball courts.
That was
And-
the old dog pound building, right?
I believe so.
Was it? Yeah, no, well, that's one of them that's torn down now, but there's a building that's still existing right there.
Okay.
But that is a new fence line that was put in by the county, and there's a gate there. It was unlocked for quite a while, but now there's a padlock on it. So I was just wondering if there's any way that you can get that open. It's just from one piece of public property to another, but it's controlled by the county and it's access to the city services here. So it'd be really nice to see that open.
Yeah, and Tim, I'll just let you know what we've been doing about that issue specifically. So, Clackamas County is actually using Hillendale Park for their annual employee picnic. So we're trying to have conversations related to that and kind of use that as an opportunity to talk about just access in general and that gate. I've got a contact that was the point person for that application that I'm trying to get this. We've got to find out who the appropriate person is, and I'm trying to use that contact to find out who the appropriate person is to talk about it with. But it's a good point of, if you want to call it leverage, but they're using the park for a rather large event. I think they will see that this has a benefit to them too. So that's kind of what we're doing right now, and we're working on it slowly but surely. We have not been able to get in contact with them yet, but we're working on it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent. Opened up for any other member reports. Ken?
Yep. So I've been able to get out a lot with the grandkids and just, I've been really happy with the way that the parks are looking already, you know, and it's been a little bit challenging with the weather and, you know, the grass grows really fast and, you know, you can't get out there and get your mowers stuck, but, things are looking really nice. I had a question though, is Memorial Day typically the kickoff for your summer season in a sense, like for the spray pads and restrooms and that sort of thing? Or is it weather pending? I know it's, Memorial Day's a little early this year, so it's kind of throwing everybody off a little bit, but, I know there's a couple parks where the restrooms are not open yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Tom address that. I think I know the spray pads, we were talking about a June 1st start date.
Okay.
But, the rest of that, I'll see if Tom has any information for you.
Yeah, that's correct. June 1st is our typical day, just because we know that that's, you know, kind of that late May weather can go either way. You know,
It can be
sometimes
100.
we open them early and we just don't tell anybody.
Right.
We give people soft opening.
Yeah. Okay. And then I was wondering if we're going to start talking about maybe showing up at different events and things, do we want to maybe take a little bit of time to kind of talk about what we want to maybe have on hand for either displays or, you know, whether it's, I'm not a big fan of handing out stuff because a lot of it ends up on the ground and we'll end up picking it up later. But maybe a couple nice maps or something like that we can just kind of have kind of a revolving show or something, if maybe we want to talk about that a little bit, maybe at our next meeting, just to kind of gear up for some of these events.
Yeah,
If that would be,
yeah, just to follow up that, I think one of the goals we should have for next meeting is maybe looking through, I don't know, Tom, or who can look at this, looking through what a booth could look like at a welcome booth, or what our booths could look like, so we are more organized. I think a big goal, especially as we talk about long-term funding and different funding to get for the Parks District, is to engage the community and have them become advocates for park, and that's something we could take a big step towards this summer. I agree, and I know we've done a lot of work recently with the Oregon City website, maybe a barcode people can scan to see an update of our goals, just using technology in our favor, just different ways to, of course, reduce litter and things of that nature as well. So yeah, I agree. I would love to have something in the next meeting that is just options we could look at and kind of choose as we go out. Because I would love to be a part of a lot of the engagement in the community, as a lot of us are in the different neighborhoods, we represent them and the groups. And I think a big goal that we can do as a committee is make everyone an advocate for our funding to improve the parks. Is that what you're?
yeah, yep.
Yep. Is that something we can add in for next month's meeting to start to roll out for
Certainly.
everything that is coming up here? I think the goal should be to have those finalized by that meeting.
Yeah, we can certainly bring some items back. It looks like maybe Tom has something to add here.
Oh, sorry, Tom, I just saw your raised hand. Go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. I do want to kind of advocate for, I think it would be really beneficial if this group were to maybe go to the event that's on I think it's June 7th, that Metro is doing at the Oregon City Public Library for their community choice grants. The process that they're using for this program is really unique and a really good, it's actually an award-winning process for community engagement. So it might be something that sparks some ideas. They've got I sent Corey a link for a website. We'll send it out for you. The website that they built is through a program called ArcGIS. It's what's known as a hub. It has the ability to do maps, all the different things. We may have access to that software as well, and I have some experience with developing websites that are similar. So I would encourage people to kind of engage with that process and see how they're doing some of their community engagement, because it could give us some good insights on how to modify that for, kind of our city and community.
Awesome. That is on the official family calendar for me now, so that means it's set in stone.
Tom, what are the times again on that?
Give me just 1 second. You guys want to keep going? I will let you know.
I have it written down as 11 to 2 from the earlier presentation, but that could be, Tom, please correct me if that's wrong from the initial comments that were made.
My calendar invite from Metro says 10 to 3.
Okay. Perfect.
But the event is 11 to 2, that's correct. So mine includes the setup and takedown.
Awesome. All I was going to give for my member report is I have heard a lot of good feedback on us getting a lot of this summer information out to the community. So I just want to give a shout out to PRAC. That's always been a point of communication, I feel, on how do we make people know about the events. And I've seen a lot more engagement through social media and just a lot of more conversations with friends that, oh, are you going to go to this concert? And that's never been a thing this early. So just a shout out to the Parks and Rec Department on their community engagement so far for these summer events. Though everyone was really nervous about the Johnny Limbo band not being on the initial. I had 2 or 3 people ask me about that personally. Like, I have no control over that. Is there
Thomas, I do have a question, and I bring it up at every meeting, is of course, what's going on with the poison oak down over at Park Place. And also just watching the invasives, the Scotch broom, and other invasive things that are happening in the metro pathway that I walk all the time. So wondering, how is the city dealing with those invasives? I know we have our Ivy League of volunteers with the city and also the Parks Foundation. But are there other ways that people are engaging and helping the city and getting rid of invasive plants?
Yeah, I'll kind of talk about that a little bit. As far as Park Place goes specifically, we're continuing to treat poison oak along the trail. The trail is still closed for public use. That's certainly something we can look at discussing in the future, whether it remains closed or not. But so far we are treating poison oak along the trail and keeping it away from that trail corridor. There is a project that's in the works with the Park Place Neighborhood Association to work down on that grassy field there to do some improvements, kind of expand that trailhead component, which is away from the poison oak. So it's not going up into the forest, it's staying down on the grass. As far as invasives throughout the city, we rely heavily on our volunteers. Really grateful for our partnerships with Ivy League and Oregon City Parks Foundation for their work. We do have crews who utilize an integrated pest management strategy to treat invasives wherever we see them. The one that I know that the team has been chasing lesser celandine a lot over the spring, I think if I remember correctly, in Atkinson Park and a couple other spots. We work on it as much as we can, particularly in the spring, to do pre-emergent and then post-emergent treatments. It's always great when people report, helps us keep track of it. So please, if you see something out there, let us know. We can get that to the right people and handle it appropriately. But yeah, our main strategy is our teams that are certified as public pesticide applicators, trained to do higher level invasive removal, contracted work where it's necessary, and then our volunteers.
Thank you.
All right. Any other member reports?
I don't have really anything to report other than the few fields we've played softball on have been really nicely kept up. All this rainy season, we'd love to have turf, but I won't push that this biennium.
We will add that to our priorities.
Yeah.
I'm just joking. Excellent. Well, our next scheduled meeting is June 26, 2025, and we are adjourned.